Hello and welcome to the This Awesome Life podcast, a collection of stories that point to purpose. I'm Brandon and I have an awesome life, but that's not special because you do too. In every episode of This Awesome Life, we'll talk to a friend, we'll listen to their story, and we'll hear about the moments in which God has shown up in their life and pointed them forward in their calling. Today, we're talking to my friend, Ryan Frank. Ryan is the CEO of KidzMatter, an organization that resources and empowers kids ministry leaders to lead their people really well. Today, Ryan and I talk about gifts, calling, and finding contentment where you are. So let's dive in, explore some stories, and celebrate this awesome life. Well, hey, and thank you so much for listening to the This Awesome Life podcast. Before we get started with today's conversation, I wanted to take a quick second to tell you about my brand new book, Magic in the Mug. Now, this book is all about how a single cup of coffee can help us discern our purpose and learn a little bit more about who God has called each of us to be. I can't wait to share this book with the world. It is launching later this fall. I'd love for you to be one of the first to know all the details about Magic in the Mug. Head over to magicinthemug.com. That's where you're going to find all the information you need, and I really hope to see you there. Well, hey everyone, once again, I am here with Ryan Frank. Ryan, man, you do a lot of cool stuff, like a lot of things. I'd love to hear a little bit about you. Why don't you introduce yourself to our friends here on the podcast?
Yeah, well, Brandon, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited about the podcast. I'm excited about your blog and everything that you're doing and the stories that you're telling. My wife, Beth, and I have three daughters, an 18-year-old named Luci, a 12-year-old London, and a 9-year-old Lily. So we've got a house full of girls. We did just recently get a puppy that's a boy. So I am not alone anymore.
Oh, nice.
Brandon, in my home.
Forever
good. I was outnumbered. Even our dog was a girl. She died last year, and now we have a boy puppy. So
there you go.
Yeah, I love pastors and ministry leaders. I was on staff at a church for 15 years and currently lead an organization called KidzMatter, which serves the church market, especially specifically people that are working with kids and families in the church. And then my wife and I have some businesses that we own and operate as well. Carwash, a drive-through convenience store, bunch of apartment complexes, and an insurance agency that specializes in personal insurance, home auto, and some commercial insurance. Nice. So yeah, our life is fun. Every day is a challenge, but it also creates exciting opportunities.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm a big fan of KidzMatter. Like it's really been a blessing to me. I love the conference, love the resources that you guys provide. So yeah, well, thanks for doing that.
That's where we met at the KidzMatter conference.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
This past fall. Thanks for being there and your team.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be back. We're going to be there this fall as well. So we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. So what we talk about here is just purpose. Like, how do we find our purpose? And I found that a lot of our purpose is discerned just through digging through stories and things like that. So I'd love to hear a story from your life that has kind of helped you move towards who you feel like God's called you to be.
Yeah. I love it because stories are so powerful. Jesus taught with stories. And we're all kids are fascinated by stories, but adults are fascinated by stories. Yeah. So I love what you're doing, Brandon, by sharing these stories. When I was a young children's pastor, I had thought, well, actually in high school, I felt called to vocational ministry and thought that I'll just be a pastor one day. And through a series of events, the Lord had me leading children's ministry at my church, and I loved it. And, at first, to be very transparent, it was my foot in the door. So the church needed a children's ministry director. I thought, hey, I can do this. I'll jump in and help. It'll be a staff job at the church I grew up in, which was a dream job to me at the time as a kid. And so I started serving in children's ministry, and then slowly began to really enjoy it and, began to think, this is perhaps what God has called me to do.
Yeah.
But then, something happened to me that happens to all of us. And that is, the enemy will get us to doubt our calling, and will get us to think, is this really what he's called you to do? So I was back with the kids every week, but then I had people come up to me at church and ask questions like, when are you going to be the youth pastor somewhere? Because, with a lot of these people, it was children's pastor, and then the next step up was you become a youth pastor. And then the next step up is you get a pastor of your own church, right? So when are you've been doing this for a couple of years, when are you going to be a youth pastor? Or people would ask me, why doesn't the pastor let you preach more? Why are you always back with the kids and everybody else gets to preach in big church and you never get to preach in big church? And so the Lord, or the enemy, not the Lord, but the enemy really began to use those in my life as a young person to really question my calling. And I started thinking, is there a bigger, better ministry for me somewhere else? Or are people looking down on me because I'm down here with the kids every Sunday?
Right.
And it was about 6 months later that I found myself at a children's ministry conference, much like the KidzMatter conference, sitting in a breakout. And the breakout session, Brandon, was about 10. What was it on? It was on growing your interpersonal skills. Now all of a sudden the name of the breakout's slipping me, but something like 10 ways to win with people or something. And it was all about growing your interpersonal skills. But I did not get any of that out of the breakout. Instead, God used that hour to really confirm in my heart that you're called to children's ministry. And I remember sitting in that breakout that had nothing to do with your calling. It had to do with how to get along with people and build rapport with people. And I wrote in that notebook that until my gifts change, or until my calling changes, or until I die, I'm going to be in children's ministry. Now, that's so good. Can your gifts change? Yeah, God grows us. And a lot of times, I have gifts today that I didn't have as a 20-year-old kid. Can your calling change? Sure. God often will change our calling. Can we die? Of course we can die. But I wrote down on my notebook that day in that session that until my gifts change, or until my calling changes, or until I die, I'm committed to children's ministry. This is what God's called me to do. And I left that breakout room. I left that conference in Cincinnati, Ohio, with my chin up and with a renewed commitment that God, this is what you've called me to do. I believe that there is not a more important work in the world than children's ministry. I don't care if people look down on me. I don't care if other people think that I'm missing out on something bigger or better, because I know that this is what you've called me to, and this is what you've wired me to. So I would encourage all of you who are listening to the podcast, if there's anything that the enemy would, I believe one of the greatest tools that the enemy uses in our lives is discouragement. And if he can get you discouraged, and if he can get you discouraged thinking, well, I don't have what it takes. If he can get you discouraged thinking, well, this isn't really what I thought I was going to be doing. If he can get you discouraged thinking I'm not qualified, get you discouraged thinking I don't feel like I'm a part, like other people are part, he's got you exactly where he wants you. So lean in, remember the calling that God has placed on your life. Look at how he has gifted you and wired you, and walk confidently in that calling.
Wow. That's so good. I love those things, it's so fun to go to a breakout thinking you're going to get one thing and you end up getting something completely different. And it's like, are people skills very valuable? Yes, they are. But is your calling and who you are probably the message that you absolutely needed? That's amazing.
It is.
There's a couple of things that come to mind that I think a lot of our story, we have a lot of similar bits to our own story. Like my first job in ministry was at the church I grew up in as well. And it
Was it?
was
Yeah.
like, it was such a dream job. Like all of a sudden you're like, I feel like I've arrived, and really like that's its own whole thing. Right. But
Yes.
how long, you said were you there for 15 years? Was that the one you were at
I
for
was,
that
I was,
long, or
yeah,
yeah.
still go to church there. My
Right.
father-in-law was pastor there for 40 years,
Okay.
but yeah,
Nice.
I was on
Yeah.
paid staff for 15 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Did you find that it's hard, like, because this is for me, I experienced a little bit of this, where it's hard to grow up where you grew up, right? Like, did you deal with any of that?
Yeah. You know what it is? There are a lot of pluses and there are a lot of negatives.
Yeah.
Pluses are, you know the people and they know you very well. So that, gets you have a lot of relational equity with people and a
Okay.
lot of years. Um, but yeah, you know what? You also, the flip side of the coin is that, to a lot of people, you're the kid that grew up in the church. And
Right.
uh, so you've got a little bit extra work to do, but
Sure.
there definitely is a
Sure.
lot of upside. And
Yeah.
that's neat. I didn't know that was part of your story as well, Brandon.
Yep. A little bit. And so then as well, like you go to this breakout, right? You get this calling confirmed in your heart,
Yeah.
and you're hoping to go back and all those questions about your next steps and all that stuff. You want them to stop, right? But I'm sure they didn't. Did you still get those questions, and how do you navigate that as people are
Uh,
still asking you, why don't you get to preach? When are you going to be a real
yes.
pastor? That kind of stuff.
100%. And I would be a liar to say that I never struggled with it anymore. Right.
Right.
I think every youth pastor, children's pastor, assistant pastor struggles with what if I was in charge? What if I was making the calls? What if I was up front more? What if I, was in the spotlight more? And yeah, the questions still came, and the enemy would still try to get me discouraged. Um, but you just have to. That's one reason why, for me, I kept that notebook. I still have it to this day. I'll go back
That's
to it,
awesome.
look at it sometimes. You just have to go back to, this is what God has called me to. And I do not get my um, confidence from the opinions of people or
Mm,
what they think about me. And I get my confidence from the calling that God has placed on my life. And that's where not only does my confidence come from, but that's where my satisfaction comes from. And so you just have to choose every day that, I'm going to walk in my calling, and God will give you the strength, and he'll also give you the joy.
that's really good. And so the last thing that really has kind of stuck out to me is you wrote in that notebook, until my gifts change or my calling changes, this is
Mhm.
where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to see when your gifts change, right? That's something that is very like noticeable. There's like a practical application to that. How do you
Yeah.
know when your calling changes, or how do you sense that? How do you confirm that? Because it feels a little fuzzier, right?
Yeah. It can feel fuzzy. And, there's no, you'll, I think you'll just feel it. You'll know it.
Yeah.
Um, it's not really, I wish there was a blueprint where, if you could check off A, B, and C, then
Right.
the Bible talks a lot about that peace that God gives you in your heart. Um,
Yeah.
the safety and a multitude of counselors and people that you can rely on and trust, that you can talk through and will kind of give some confirmation. Your spouse, your husband, your wife, the people that are closest to you, they'll sense that as well.
Yeah.
A lot of times sometimes you never are 100%, should I switch churches? Should I switch roles? I don't know that you'll ever be 100%. Yep. I 100% dogmatically know this is what I need to do,
Right.
but you just kind of go with your gut. Now, the important thing is that your walk with the Lord is what it needs to be.
Right.
And that, you're not making these major life calling decisions when you're not walking with the Lord, or there's unconfessed sin in your life and you're out of connect, you're not in tune with the Holy Spirit in your life. But if you
Mhm.
are doing your best to walk with the Lord, you're doing your best to, to humbly walk with him, stay in his word, stay in prayer, be led of the Spirit of God. I think you'll just know. And at
That's good.
some point, you just got to take that step. And like the children of Israel when they were crossing that Red Sea, that water didn't part until those priests took that first step. And when they took
Right.
that first step, the waters parted. So you got to just kind of take that first step, and then God will send you the confirmations.
That's so good. That's awesome.
And if
Well,
you
hey,
mess up,
yeah.
Brandon, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
God will give you the grace and the help to figure it out and get you where you need to be.
Absolutely. I heard a quote not too long ago. It was really good. And it really only applies if you're in wise counsel, right? And that's one of the things you said, like seeking the wise counsel in your life and stuff. Was a counselor who said to it, like counseled a friend and was like, hey, if you're wrong, we'll be wrong together. And so it was very much
exactly
like
right.
Yeah, we're going to do this together. Do that, like make sure you have the right community, the right people in your life, and then go forward. That's all we can do, right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Appreciate the wisdom. A lot of good things to share. Anything else that you'd say kind of as one more piece of wisdom?
Brandon, I love what you just said. You need people in your life, whether you are a stay-at-home mom, whether you're a ministry leader, a school teacher, whether you're a manager at Hobby Lobby, whatever it is that you do, refuse to do it alone. So, surround yourself with people that are going to help you dream big, and they're going to help you believe God for big things, and are going to help you grow spiritually and grow to be a better mom, dad, grandma, grandpa. When we get alone and we start trying to go through life by ourselves, we're going to be in trouble. So surround yourself with good people. That'll be one of the best decisions you can make.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate you being here, man.
Brandon, thanks for having me. Keep up the great work.
Appreciate it. There's so much wisdom in what Ryan shared today. I love the encouragement he shared about community. Ryan said, whatever you're doing, refuse to do it alone. I 100% agree with this. And I encourage you to find people who will help you get better, who will help you grow, who believe in you and your calling, and will be there for you when you're going through difficult times. You've got to have people in your life that are like that. You've got to have people that are going to show up when things are hard. You've got to have people that are going to show up when things are going well and help you continue to move forward. You've got to have people in your life that are willing to call out things that they see that aren't in line with who you're supposed to be. There's so many times in my own life where I have blind spots that I don't see some things that I might be struggling with or questioning my own calling. And I've got people in my life that will tell me, hey, you're right where God wants you to be. And it's hard to see that sometimes. It's hard to understand that from time to time. But when you're surrounded with wise counsel, like Ryan said earlier, you're going to know what the right thing to do is. You're going to be able to grow. You're going to be able to continue to move forward. So let me ask you this. Where are you on your journey right now with your calling? Are you content in that calling, or are you struggling with it a little bit? Are you content or are you struggling with it because you don't have those people that are pointing to what's true? You don't have the people in your life that are telling you like, this is where you need to be? Or are you not content because you're not doing what you should be doing? You're not living out that calling. You need people in your life that can say, hey, this is not a good fit for you. You need to really pursue who Jesus is calling you to be, or who God's made you to be. Do you have people in your life that are pushing you forward toward your calling and toward Jesus? Remember, whatever you're doing, refuse to do it alone. Get help from those people. Find others who are willing to lift you up, who are willing to help you pursue your calling. That's what you need in your life. Real solid, good community, because the questions are going to come. If you're in ministry, the questions are going to come. When are you going to take that next step? When are you going to be a real pastor? Like as somebody who's done youth ministry for a long time, it doesn't stop just because your calling is confirmed, and you have to be ready. You have to be able to reconcile that in your own heart and say, no, this is what God's called me to, and I'm going to continue to do it. And the same thing, no matter what you're doing, whether you're in ministry or whether you're not, whether you're, like you said, a stay-at-home mom, school teacher, manager at Hobby Lobby, whatever you're doing, if that is your calling, and be content in that, be confident in that. Know that God's got you there for a reason. Know that he's called you to do something incredible for his kingdom, and live your best life right there. Because your life is awesome. All you have to do is dig through your stories, and it will point to the fact that God has been there all along, showing you exactly who he's created you to be. and empowering you with the next step that you need to take forward. I hope this has been encouraging today. Thanks so much for listening to This Awesome Life. Here we're just a collection of stories that point to purpose. To stay connected with This Awesome Life, check out the show notes. That's where you'll find the This Awesome Life blog and newsletter. And you can also find my social media links if you'd like to connect with me there. I'd love to get connected with you. If you want to get connected with Ryan, his website and links are in the show notes as well. And I'm sure that he'd love to connect with you. If you love This Awesome Life and you love listening to the show, I'd love for you to take a minute to leave us a review. Don't forget to like and follow our podcast so that you never miss an episode. And once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on This Awesome Life.